All right, buckle up everyone, because today we are diving deep into let them theory.
Ooh, let them theory. Mel Robbins, right?
Yes, Mel Robbins, and get this, her daughter.
Yeah.
We've got a whole bunch of sources for this one. A book review video on YouTube, some marketing materials I found online, even saw it mentioned on TikTok.
TikTok, wow.
Yeah, right. So we are going to figure out what exactly this let them idea is all about, what people are saying about it, and most importantly, how we can actually maybe use it in our own lives.
Sounds good.
Okay, so let them theory. It's this idea about letting go.
Letting go of.
Of the need to control what other people think and do. It's like, how much energy do we waste worrying about other people's opinions?
Yeah.
Let them. Let that worry go. It can be incredibly freeing.
I can see that, yeah. It's like you're giving yourself permission to just be. You're not carrying around the burden of other people's expectations anymore.
Exactly. It's about focusing on your own internal transformation rather than trying to change the people around you.
So it's not about manipulating others or getting them to see things your way. It's more about shifting your own mindset.
You got it. And you know what's really interesting is that some people say embracing this let them philosophy can actually help you live more authentically.
Because you're not constantly trying to please others, you can be more true to yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Does that resonate with you at all? I know you've mentioned feeling pressure to conform in the past.
Oh, absolutely. I think we all feel that pressure to some extent, right? To fit in, to meet certain expectations. It's like this invisible script we're all trying to follow.
Totally. And let them is like ripping that script and saying, I'm going to write my own story.
And imagine the impact that could have if everyone felt empowered to embrace their true selves without fear of judgment.
Oh, that would be amazing. It would be a world full of genuine connections, real conversations, and so much less anxiety about what other people think.
And you know what? It makes sense that when you're genuine, you attract like-minded people. You're putting yourself out there without any pretenses, and that can be incredibly magnetic.
It's like you're saying, this is me, take it or leave it. And the people who vibe with that, those are your people.
Exactly. And without that constant worry about what others think, well, the research actually suggests that it can lead to greater happiness. Plus, there's this confidence boost that comes from not needing external validation all the time.
Right. You're defining your own worth instead of letting others determine it for you.
Which can make you more resilient in the face of challenges because you know your worth regardless of what anyone else says or does.
And, you know, this isn't just some abstract concept. Let them can have very real-life applications.
Oh, I'm sure, like in relationships.
Exactly. Imagine setting clear boundaries and communicating your needs openly without taking responsibility for how your partner reacts.
That's a game changer. So it's about detaching from the need to control their feelings and just focusing on expressing yourself authentically.
Right. And accepting that you can't control their response. It's about giving them the space to have their own experience, even if it's different from yours.
I like that. It takes the pressure off trying to make them feel a certain way.
Totally. And it frees you up to be more present in the relationship without that constant fear of saying or doing the wrong thing.
Because you're not walking on eggshells trying to manage their emotions. You're just being yourself and letting the chips fall where they may.
Exactly. And, you know, this applies to all kinds of relationships, romantic, friendships, family, even work relationships.
Especially work relationships. Think about all the times we hold back from sharing ideas or taking risks because we're afraid of what others might think.
Or we stay in jobs we hate because we're afraid of disappointing someone or rocking the boat.
Right. But with Let Them, you're empowered to make choices that are aligned with your own values, regardless of what anyone else thinks.
It's about taking ownership of your life and your decisions.
And that kind of freedom can lead to amazing things, both personally and professionally.
Absolutely. Even those seemingly small everyday decisions like what to wear or what to eat can become more joyful when you let go of that need for approval.
Because you're not constantly second-guessing yourself or worrying about what others might think. You're free to embrace your own style, your own preferences, your own unique way of being in the world.
And you know what? Even the critics of Let Them acknowledge that the repetition in the book could actually be a good thing.
Repetition, like saying let them over and over again.
Yeah. It's almost like a mantra, right?
Yeah.
It helps to really internalize the message, especially for those of us who are deeply ingrained in those people-pleasing habits.
It's like rewiring your brain to think differently, to break free from those old patterns.
And speaking of breaking free, did you know that Mel Robbins' daughter actually played a huge role in shaping this whole let them philosophy?
Really? I didn't know that. Tell me more.
Well, During the research phase for the book, Sawyer was reading online comments, and she noticed that some people were saying they felt lonely after applying Let Them.
Lonely? That's interesting. I wonder why.
Well, it seems like they were letting go of control, which is great, but they weren't filling that space with anything.
Right.
So it's like they were letting go of other people's opinions, but they hadn't figured out what they truly wanted for themselves.
Exactly. They were letting go of the external, but they hadn't fully embraced the internal.
I see. So it's not enough to just let them be. You also have to let me be.
You got it. And that's what led to the second step of the Let Them theory, Let Me. It's about taking responsibility for your own growth, your own fulfillment, your own happiness.
So it's a two-part process. Let them and let me.
Exactly. It's about letting go of what you can't control and taking charge of what you can. You can't control other people's thoughts, feelings, or actions, but you can control your own. And that's where true freedom lies.
I love that. Like a recipe for empowerment. Let go of the need to control and embrace the power you have within.
Right. And the most fascinating part of this whole thing is that Mel and Sawyer's own mother-daughter relationship was a huge part of this journey. They actually wrote the book together.
Wow. That must have been intense. Imagine trying to collaborate on a project about letting go of control when you have your own relationship dynamics to navigate.
It was definitely a challenge. They were very open about the fact that their relationship wasn't perfect. They had their own baggage, their own communication issues, their own struggles with control.
So they were really walking the walk, huh? Putting the principles they were writing about into practice in their own lives.
Exactly. They had to let them each other be and let me be themselves throughout the entire process.
Which probably led to some pretty powerful breakthroughs, I imagine.
Oh, absolutely. They had to confront their own ingrained patterns, their assumptions about each other, their own ways of communicating.
And in doing so, they not only strengthened their own bond, but also created something incredibly valuable for others to learn from.
Right. It's like they turned their own personal journey into a roadmap for anyone who wants to create more fulfilling relationships and experience a greater sense of freedom.
That's amazing. So what can we learn from their experience? What were some of the key takeaways from their journey?
Well, first of all, they were incredibly honest about the fact that their relationship was strained. They didn't try to sugarcoat it or pretend everything was perfect.
Which makes it so much more relatable, right? Because let's be honest, who has a perfect relationship?
Exactly. And they acknowledged that their different personalities and working styles created friction. Sawyer felt neglected because of Mel's intense work schedule, and she felt like her younger sister got more attention.
Ah, the classic sibling rivalry dynamic. I'm sure many people can relate to that feeling of not getting enough attention or feeling like a parent favors one child over another.
Totally. And their different working styles were a constant source of conflict. Mel is described as a box jumper, someone who sees the big picture and loves to brainstorm ideas, while Sawyer is more of a box stepper, someone who needs structure and organization.
Yes. The classic clash between the creative visionary and the meticulous planner. I can only imagine the sparks that flew.
Oh, there were definitely sparks. But here's the amazing part. Despite their contrasting personalities and ongoing tension, working on the book actually strengthened their bond.
That's incredible. How did they manage to do that?
Well, they had to apply, let them, and let me in real time. They had to constantly navigate their differences, let go of the need to control each other, and take responsibility for their own reactions.
So their shared project became a vehicle for healing your relationship.
Exactly. It forced them to confront their own ingrained patterns and assumptions. Mel had to learn to accept Sawyer's different working style and give her the space to do things her way. And Sawyer had to learn to communicate her needs more clearly and appreciate her mother's unique strengths.
So they both had to do some inner work, some let me work, in order to create a more harmonious dynamic.
Yes, and they had some major breakthroughs along the way. Both of them had to let go of their own need to be right, their need to control the situation, their need to make the other person see things their way.
Which is probably the hardest part, right? Letting go of that need to be right.
It is. But when you can do that, when you can truly embrace let them and let me, it opens up space for something new to emerge. A connection based on mutual respect, acceptance, and understanding.
It sounds like they went through a lot together, but they came out stronger on the other side.
They did. And their experience is a reminder that even the most strained relationships can evolve when we're willing to embrace discomfort, be vulnerable, and communicate openly.
It's a message of hope, really. A reminder that change is possible, even in the most challenging relationships.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this first part of our deep dive into Let Them theory, I want to leave you with this question. Where in your life are you holding back because of what others might think?
That's a powerful question. What would it look like to embrace this let them philosophy in your own relationships?
What if you started consciously letting go of the need to control other people's thoughts, feelings, and actions?
And what if, in doing so, you discovered a deeper sense of freedom and authenticity within yourself?
What if you just gave yourself permission to be yourself, without worrying about whether or not everyone else approves?
That's a powerful thought, isn't it? It's like you're taking back your power.
Right. You're no longer giving other people the power to dictate your happiness or your self-worth.
Now, I know what some people might be thinking. What about those relationships where the other person is just difficult?
Oh yeah, those people.
The ones who always seem to bring drama or negativity into your life? How does let them work in those situations?
That's actually where let them can be even more crucial, because it's about detaching from the need to change them or fix their behavior.
So you're not condoning their actions, you're just recognizing that you can't control them.
Right. You can't force someone to be different, but you can control how you react to them.
It's like refusing to play their game.
Exactly. You're no longer a participant in their drama, you're more of an observer.
Which can be so freeing because you're not getting caught up in their emotional turmoil. You're creating this buffer that protects your own energy and well-being.
It's not about tolerating abuse or disrespect, though. You still need to set healthy boundaries.
Of course, you always have the right to protect yourself. But let them is about recognizing that you can't change someone else. You can only change yourself.
It's about focusing on your own response rather than trying to control theirs.
And that's where you find true freedom, because you're no longer giving them the power to dictate your emotional state.
One of the things that really struck me in the research was how let them can be applied to social media.
Social media, oh, that's a tough one.
Right. It's so easy to get caught up in comparing ourselves to others, feeling envy or inadequacy.
It's like a breeding ground for insecurity. Everyone's presenting these perfect, curated versions of themselves.
And it's easy to forget that it's not real life. It's just a highlight reel.
Right. And let them can help us navigate that digital landscape with more awareness and intentionality.
So instead of getting sucked into the comparison trap, we can choose to engage with content that uplifts us and let them have the negativity.
It's about curating our own online experience, just like we curate our physical environment.
Exactly. We have the power to choose what we consume, what we engage with, and what we let into our lives.
It's about creating a digital space that supports our well-being rather than depleting it.
Now, I want to circle back to Mel and Sawyer's mother-daughter dynamic because it's so relatable for anyone who's ever felt disconnected from a loved one.
It's a reminder that even the closest relationships can be challenging.
They describe their relationship as a tug of war, constantly pulling at each other, creating tension and distance.
That's such a powerful image. It really captures that struggle for control that can happen in families.
And they were incredibly honest about the resentment that had built up between them. Sawyer talked about feeling resentful of Mel's workaholic tendencies and the attention she gave to her younger sister.
Oh, wow. That must have been painful for her to carry around.
It was. She even admitted that she clung to her anger because it was the only way she felt truly seen.
I can understand that. Sometimes anger can be a way of protecting ourselves, of making sure we don't get hurt again.
But ultimately, it wasn't serving her. It was just creating more distance and pain.
So how did they break free from that cycle of resentment and anger?
Through the process of writing the book together, they discovered that the key to ending that tug of war was to simply drop the rope.
Drop the rope? What do you mean by that?
To stop trying to control each other and instead focus on their own individual growth and healing.
So it's about surrendering to what is rather than trying to force things to be different.
Exactly. And it wasn't easy. It was a messy, imperfect process with arguments, tears, and frustration.
Because real change is rarely neat and tidy, right? It's usually messy and uncomfortable.
But throughout it all, they held on to the principles of let them and let me, using them as a guide to navigate those differences and find common ground.
It's a reminder that even when things are tough, we can always choose to come back to those core principles.
And one of the most surprising things they discovered was that their different working styles were actually complementary.
Complementary, but they were always clashing, weren't they?
They were. But Mel's box-jumping creativity and Sawyer's meticulous box-stepping created a synergy that ultimately made the book better.
It's like their differences, which they initially saw as obstacles, actually became their strengths.
Exactly. And they even developed a practical tool for navigating those contrasting styles.
Tell me more about that.
Well, Sawyer, who craved structure and organization, would create detailed outlines and briefs, while Mel, with her free-flowing style, would often deviate from those plans.
Oh, I can imagine how frustrating that must have been for Sawyer.
It was. But they found a way to bridge that gap by acknowledging their different approaches and communicating their needs directly.
So how did they do that?
Sawyer would actually say things like, "Mom, I'm going to let you do your thing creatively, but you need to let me organize myself in a way that makes me feel comfortable."
I love that. It's such a simple yet powerful way to acknowledge both people's needs.
And it really emphasizes the importance of not just saying "let them," but also following it up with "let me."
So it's not enough to detach from the other person's behavior. You also have to take responsibility for your own well-being and communicate your needs clearly.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance between honoring your own needs and respecting the other person's autonomy.
And sometimes that requires having those difficult conversations, right? Expressing how you're feeling, even when it's uncomfortable.
Absolutely. Sawyer shared that she used to fall into the trap of stewing in her resentment silently, which would then lead to these big emotional outbursts.
Oh, I've been there. It's like you bottle everything up until you just can't take it anymore.
Right. But she realized that by expressing her feelings calmly and directly, she could avoid those cycles of buildup and create a more harmonious dynamic.
So it's about choosing vulnerability over silence.
Exactly. And it's not always easy, but it's so worth it.
Because it allows for deeper connection and understanding.
Now, they also offered a word of caution. Don't expect the other person to immediately reciprocate your efforts.
Meaning, they might not jump on board with "let them" and "let me" right away.
Right. People change when they're ready, not when we want them to.
So while you're practicing "let them" and "let me," the other person might still be stuck in their old patterns.
It's important to remember that you can't control their journey. You can only control your own.
And that's where patience and compassion come in.
Exactly. Focus on your own growth and well-being, rather than trying to force a transformation in someone else.
It all comes back to that idea of control, doesn't it? We can't control others, but we can control our own responses.
And by showing up with greater awareness, compassion, and intentionality, we create the conditions for positive change.
It's a journey, not a destination. And by embracing these principles of "let them" and "let me," we embark on a path of continuous growth, self-discovery, and deeper connection with the people around us.
And they highlighted the power of shared projects or goals as a catalyst for healing and connection.
It doesn't have to be as grand as writing a book, of course.
Right. It could be something as simple as planning a trip together, tackling a home improvement project, or volunteering for a cause you both care about.
What matters is that the shared activity creates a sense of purpose and mutual reliance.
It's about shifting the focus from your differences to shared aspirations.
It's about finding that common ground where your individual strengths can complement each other.
Where you can learn from each other's perspectives, and where the joy of achieving something together can pave the way for a stronger relationship. Yeah, it really is amazing how working together towards a common goal can bring people closer.
It's like you're both focused on the same thing, so the little differences don't seem so big anymore.
Right. So as we wrap up our deep dive into let them theory, I want to leave you with this. What if we all started to just let go of the small stuff? You know, the little annoyances and resentments that we all have in our relationships.
It's so easy to get caught up in those little things, isn't it? Like, why do they always leave their dishes in the sink? Or why do they never put the toilet seat down?
Exactly. But what if, instead of trying to control those things, we just let them go? What if we focused on our own growth and well-being, embracing that let me part of the equation?
It's about choosing to focus on what we can control. Our own thoughts, feelings, and actions.
Right. And when we do that, it frees up so much energy. It's like we're not carrying around this heavy backpack filled with all of our resentments and frustrations.
And imagine what you could do with all that extra energy. You could pursue your passions, build stronger relationships, create something amazing.
Absolutely. So here's one final thought to ponder. Could a shared project or goal be the bridge that helps you connect with someone you've been struggling to reach? Think about a relationship in your life where there's been tension or distance.
What would it look like to apply "let them" and "let me" to that relationship?
Maybe it's a conversation you need to have, a boundary you need to set, or just a simple act of kindness to shift the energy.
Even the smallest steps taken with intention can create ripples of change.
And remember, you are worthy of love and connection just as you are. You don't need to change or fix yourself to be deserving of those things.
By embracing "let them" and "let me," You open yourself up to a world where relationships can be a source of joy, support, and growth.
That's all for this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep into the things that matter most to you.